The Immortal Constellation, written by Edith Balogh, translated by Barbara Dunchazi and Edith Simon, read by Edith Simon. Our mission is to give an alternative viewpoint on life in this rapidly evolving moment in time. We feel there are many out there who have been waiting for such a message, which is why we poured our time, energy, and love into this project's manifestation, to aid humanity as well as ourselves in this transformation, to land together in a new, better reality, bathed in the sea of love and eternal unity. If you resonate with this message and would like to support our work, please feel free to share it with your community. Please subscribe, share, and like this video so the YouTube algorithm will suggest it to others interested in this topic. Thank you. Chapter 5. The Universe. Quote by Peter Matheson. The ancient intuition that all matter, all reality is energy, that all phenomena, including time and space, are mere crystallization of mind, is an idea with which few physicists have quarreled since the theory of relativity first called into question the separate identities of energy and matter. Today, most scientists would agree with the ancient Hindus that nothing exists or is destroyed, things merely change shape or form, that matter is insubstantial in origin, a temporary aggregate of the pervasive energy that animates the electron. The cosmos encompasses all things, both corporeal and immaterial. It includes all forms of energy, matter, and time. The universe's mass is composed of several things. Approximately 4% accounts for atoms, which is tangible matter such as intergalactic gases, stars, planets, and all things similar which we have gathered quite an extensive knowledge of. 26% is dark matter, and lastly, the remaining 70% is accounted for as dark energy. This last area we possess the least understanding of. Dark matter is a type of undetermined matter which takes up a considerable chunk of the universe's total mass, but which is different from atoms. It neither emits or scatters light or other electromagnetic radiation, and therefore cannot be directly observed with current astrological instruments such as telescopes. Because of this peculiar characteristic, evidence for this so-called missing mass can only be concluded by observing the motions of galaxies and gravitational forces. Though there is some consensus regarding dark matter in the mainstream scientific community, it is hardly uniform. Most scientists now agree it exists, while some dispute it and look for alternative explanations. Dark energy is a hypothetical form of energy. It has a very strong negative pressure. Following Einstein's theory of general relativity, negative pressure or large distances neutralizes gravitational pull. It is thought to accelerate the expansion of the universe and permeates all of space. There are two possible explanations to dark energy. One is referred to as the cosmological constant. This is the simplest form of its explanation. It is the cost of having space, so that a volume of space has some intrinsic fundamental energy which is distributed evenly. The energy is even and constant. The quintessence model, on the other hand, states that dark energy is a dynamic equation that changes over time, unlike the cosmological constant. One is constant, the other dynamic. However, both explanations are merely theories. The quintessence model does not have sufficient evidence supporting it, however, it is not ruled out. Both are based on presumption. I wanted to provide this brief glimpse so that it may be better understood what exactly am I referring to when I talk about the universe and its components, to show how ineffable and indefinable the meaning which lie behind the actual words. From the above, we can also see that no matter how far-reaching and advanced our scientific knowledge presently is, in many ways we are still fumbling around in the dark. I do not wish to undermine the achievements of our scientists, as I myself am an avid follower and admirer of the exertion of their efforts and their accomplishments. The efforts of individuals who often dedicate the entirety of their lives to uncover these mysteries. All of us owe them gratitude, as we all reap the benefits of their unrelenting work. I simply stress that the more we push the limits of our knowledge and understanding, we are once again taken aback at how little we really know. When we look around, we can see how the world and the universe we live in, which we are a part of, is as unfathomably mysterious as it is big or small. Matter, Physics, and Metaphysics Simplified. Quote by Alan Wilson Watts. Through our eyes, the universe is perceiving itself. Through our ears, the universe is listening to its harmonies. We are the witnesses through which the universe becomes conscious of its glory, of its magnificence. The so-called organic and inorganic worlds are made up of the same chemical compounds, but in various different composition and proportions. What does this divided definition mean? And what is organic, living, or inorganic, inanimate? We have already discussed these areas' separate meanings, but let us see what matter itself is. Matter, very simply put, is a substance which lends all things its physical shape. The observable universe is composed of it. In a physical sense, everything which is built up from elemental particles is matter. It retains both spatial extension and mass. All matter is built up from atoms, regardless of whether it is gas, liquid, or solid, living or inanimate. Their building blocks are all atoms. By Einstein's theory of relativity, there is no difference between matter and energy, as they are mutually interchangeable. In physics, the matter is built up from atoms. The atoms are built up from electrons, protons, and neutrons. But these small constituents can be broken down into even smaller elementary particles like quarks and gluons, etc. Although we have quite an extensive knowledge regarding this field, we are still far from being completely familiar with them. From this, the general conceptualization of matter widens, as we can see that it is not simply something we can touch. Quantum physicists state that matter is not what we believed it to be for a long time. Previously, scientists believed that all matter is measurable, observable, and predictable. But recently, this explanation falls short. In reality, matter is unsubstantial. During experiments, the particles of the atom disappear, then reappear. Even the nuclei of the atom, same as the electrons. Quantum physicists say that this insubstantial matter is like a thought, a piece of concentrated information. This piece, commonly believed to be a solid, constant entity, exists in a kind of superpositioned state. When we are not looking at it, waves of possibilities are generated. When we are, its state is relative to our own experience. It can exist in an infinite number of positions, but when we focus on it, it jumps into a stationary state. By the quantum superposition state, one particle can exist simultaneously in many different places and in two different states. How is it possible for an object to be in different places at the same time? Quantum physics explains this phenomenon in a simple way. Werner Heisenberg, a major contributor to quantum mechanics, said that the atom is not a thing, but a tendency. He asserted that only the experience of an observer forces the atom to indicate a position. We should not conceptualize them as concrete things, rather as possibilities. We believe that everything which surrounds us is composed of things of their own, without their own immediate influence or choices. But in the modern quantum physicist opinion, our material world is nothing else but the choices of our consciousness through which tangible experiences to manifest themselves. We imagine the surrounding world as an entity which exists independently and outside of our own experience. But this is incorrect. Our world exists within quantum physical possibilities. If we can internalize this, the question arises of who controls and chooses between the various possibilities for an event to become reality. It is obvious that our consciousness is part of the process. We can never avoid the overseer. We are aware of what the overseer is doing from a quantum physics perspective, but unaware of what or who actually is. What is the consciousness? Where does it reside? No one knows, but we feel as we ourselves are these overseers and the ones who are looking at the world. Key to the exit. Quote by Alan Watts. You are a function of what the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is a function of what the whole ocean is doing. Outgrowing the traditional material-driven viewpoint, thanks to the efforts of open-minded scientists who have stayed clear from getting lost in a completely material world, fortunately, the horizons of science are broadening in all areas, in such a way that we can find the exit. We can step out from behind the concrete walls which encircled us, that we have previously only attempted to escape by blindly running headfirst at. We can only hurt ourselves by trying to achieve it this way. The key to the exit is in the hands of the type of people who are open to the new, the unknown, and the unfamiliar, and therefore receptive. This way, we have a chance for growth, which is nothing else but taking a new step upwards in our state of being, where the only limits we retain are those of our imaginations. This is the key. Our imagination and our crystal clear consciousness, so that we may finally realize that the rock-solid bases of our material confinements are nothing but an illusion. To be clear, I am not attempting to paint a picture of a world where people merely float among the clouds in an ethereal form. Not at all. The point remains very much around the material world. The problem does not lie with the material, rather with our conceptualization of it and our point of view. That we cannot see through it or beyond it. Because of this, we cannot familiarize ourselves with what it actually is. If we lock ourselves inside our knowledge, or rather what we believe to be our knowledge, we exclude the other possibilities. If we choose between the possibilities according to our will, then we can consciously participate and become an active part of a world which works in strict accordance with nature's laws. Of course, we are a part of it no matter what, the only difference being that, in this sense, we are at the mercy of our ignorance and its consequences. And if history shows us anything, it is that continuing this way results in our self-destruction throughout the ages. By nature's law, entities which do not work together in harmony and behave as a collective mechanism break down into their elemental components. As I said before, from nature's standpoint, this is just an everyday momentum, the constant circulation and reuse of energy. For nature, it is not considered an act of punishment for those of us who retaliate against her laws. It just simply is. The universe is neither benevolent or malicious. It is not just or unjust, ethical or unethical. None of these human concepts should be used to explain its workings. The natural laws which surround us seem tragic only from the perspective of our own form of life, from a human perspective. For us, when entities fall apart and break down, this signifies death, or at least that is the way we see it. The fact that we can understand this at all is reassuring. It lends hope to the possibility of getting to know ourselves, and through that, everything else. The fact that we are looking for something which we want to get to know is a sign that there is something within ourselves which drives us towards breaking down the walls which confine our consciousness and our future. Of course, this has always been a part of human nature. We are always on a constant quest to reach the unknown. It seems to me likely that matter carries within itself the observer. Or it is also likely that matter is the observer itself. As we know, when we observe, it becomes it. Picture looking at your dining room chair. If we're to observe your chair more close up, for instance with a microscope, after a certain time the matter which would make up that chair disappears and instead consists of many separate yet interconnected parts. Cell Biology Simplified. Quote by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Just like a single cell, the character of our life is determined not by our genes, but by our responses to the environmental signals that propel life. The human body is built up from cells. By estimations, our tissues and therefore our bodies are composed of approximately 50 trillion cells. Many think of their bodies as one single entity. While this is true to a certain extent, just like all other entities, it is also constructed of many individual pieces. We can divide ourselves into larger parts, such as our main organs, like heart, brain, lungs, and so forth. But for us to be able to understand how these larger units really work, we must look deeper. What makes up the heart, the brain? What is it put together from? The whole of our bodies, including all its organs, is composed of trillions of seemingly minuscule yet completely self-sustaining cells. These cells are the body's most important and elemental constituents. Our various body parts, which serve various different functions, are therefore the grouping of cells. Do not imagine cells as a motionlessly existing thing. A cell is in continuous movement. In practice, the movement of our individual cells allocates the movement of our bodies and therefore the continuation of our life. Within each cell, the same functions are observable as in that of a larger unit, such as the body. In ideal conditions, our cells eat, breathe, grow, divide, and regenerate themselves. Our body is nothing else but the collective functioning of these 50 trillion individual parts. Each cell has its own metabolism, and there are approximately 90 various kinds of nutrient molecules which get processed by an individual cell, which it then forwards. Each cell also functions as a biological power plant by breaking down these complex nutrient molecules to produce energy. This is what provides the body with energy. Life is a continuous movement, in other words, the circulation of energy. We can translate this meaning onto our own lives. Let's say our body is composed of 50 trillion small individual lives, and our health depends on how they do their job. Of course, we must assume that they live and work together in harmony, because we can imagine the chaos which would ensure if this was not the case. As an example, let's see what would happen if out of the 50 trillion, there is a few who slack off. The cell which does not function optimally causes many different types of problems within the body. This commences a chain reaction. First, there is a cell which does not function properly. This causes a problem in the functioning of an entire organ. The organ is unable to do its job, and then the problem spreads further. This is how serious illnesses are born. The body's functioning begins to decline and deteriorate, and due to this, the aging process may be sped up and oftentimes bringing forth premature death. Why is it that cells sometimes function properly and others fail to do their jobs? First of all, we have to forget the false information which has embedded itself completely into our belief system, which prescribes that there are hereditary illnesses and that if it is genetically passed down to us from our parents, we can become victims of it as well. This is an out-of-date yet still accepted dogma which asserts that genes control life. The newest scientific research and findings show that this in fact is not true. We only inherit the information, not the illness. The problem is that we are not capable of altering our beliefs. Because of the belief and attitude, we approach this issue with, we create the illness. We make its manifestation possible. So, we are born into a certain body. The genes which we inherit from our parents will prescribe our outward appearance. There is a 50-50 mix of our mother's and father's chromosomes, which forms our genes. We will have a certain eye color, hair color, body type, along with an entire set of cells which build up every aspect of our bodies. As we grow, this body develops, in large part influenced by our environment. One big part of this is the nourishment we intake, in other words, the nutrients which reach our system. The rest is all of the external influences we encounter. By external influences, I am referring to the entirety of the world which surrounds us and our reactions to it. The most important thing is just that, how we react to these external stimuli. This will always depend on our state of mind. The level of vigilance of our consciousness determines everything. If the program controls us, which is nothing else but learned models and traumas that we have experienced, then there is not much chance left for us to realize the internal effects of these external influences on us, but merely suffer their consequences. On the other hand, if we are awake and our consciousness stands at full attention, all of the information that we internalize can be reconfigured, as well as our belief system and our reactions, allowing room for change. This results in the possibility to look at everything from a different point of view. We can think differently. Because of this, our actions and our reactions will also follow suit. We react differently to the influences coming from our outside world and to those of our internal world. Why is how we react so important? The way we internalize the incoming impulses, how we react to those, is what initiates the process which play out in our bodies internally. All changes which occur within our bodies, down to our very cells, its nuclei, and the genes stored away within it. Yes, our inherited genes are also changeable. In fact, they do change, and this is the reason why we are continuously changing. This seemingly minuscule fact brings with it enormous possibilities and consequences. It makes it possible for us to change the original direction of our genetics. I will not delve too deep into this subject, but if my dear readers would like to learn more about the fascinating scientific data concerning this subject, I highly recommend the lectures and books of Dr. Bruce Lipton, who is making groundbreaking discoveries in this field. We are not victims of our genes, but masters of our fates, able to create lives overflowing with peace, happiness, and love. Dr. Bruce Lipton.